morning, Belen. I'm Danny Esteban.
And I'm Stefano Pinto, and welcome to this edition of WBLN for today, November 9th, 2017.
In honor of Red Ribbon Week, a week to encourage the prevention of usage of drugs and alcohol for students all over the nation. In past years, we've had the opportunity of having guest speakers from Mothers Against Drug Driving, but this year was from a slightly different perspective. Yesterday, the middle schoolers were spoken to by two members of South Florida Integrative Medicine, Joshua Joseph, who is a clinical mental health counselor, and Jared Kitto, who is a psychiatrist, and both speakers presented the clinical and mental effects of drugs, alcohol, and even nicotine-based products. The high schoolers were spoken to by Mercy Fowler, who is a counselor at Taylor Environmental School, but was also affected in a drunk driving accident, leaving her paralyzed from her waist down. Her story was truly inspiring as she spoke with pride and empowerment, reminding us to stay away from underage drinking and to say no to drugs.
That you leave behind is suffering, but if you're listening every day,
Yesterday, Ms. Sosa's peer ministry class embarked on their first Cardinare experience for this school year. Cardinare is a sophomore overnight retreat and is intended to nurture spiritual renewal and encounter with God as they encourage through personal and group meditations. Students reflect on their lives while in a natural environment. The Cardinare experience began 5 years ago and is voluntary.
Democrats are celebrating after winning Tuesday's governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. An anti-Trump wave fueling a big Democratic sweep, including the hotly contested governor's race in Virginia. The state's Democratic Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam crushing Republican Ed Gillespie by 9 points in a race that was expected to be close. President Trump blaming Gillespie for the loss, accusing him of not embracing him and what he stands for. But exit polls show that President Trump is deeply unpopular, with twice as many Virginia voters who say Trump was a factor in their decision, saying they came out to oppose the president rather than to support. Gillespie did not campaign with the president, but Mr. Trump recorded photo calls in the final stretch of the campaign. Gillespie rallied around the culture wars the president was fueled, touting his support for Confederate monuments and tying illegal immigration with violent gangs in provocative ads, a strategy that led to Northam flip-flopping on his support for sanctuary cities, but ultimately failed to deliver Gillespie a win. Democrats also making significant gains in Virginia's House of Delegates, possibly forcing a number of recounts that could shift control of the chamber to Democrats for the first time in almost 20 years. In New Jersey, Democrat Phil Murphy easily defeating the state's Republican Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno, who struggled to overcome the unpopularity of her boss governor Chris Christie. Hotly contested mayoral races in Manchester, New Hampshire, and Charlotte, North Carolina also breaking in the Democrats' favor. The blue wave extending to a number of social and cultural issues as well. Virginia Democrat Danica Roem making history, becoming the first openly transgender person elected and seated in a state legislature, defeating a social conservative who sponsored a bill that would have restricted which bathroom she could use. And first-time politician Chris Hurst, the boyfriend of a reporter shot and killed on live TV in 2015, also elected in Virginia, upsetting a three-time Republican incumbent backed by the NRA.
It may not be a red line, but it's close. President Trump warns North Korea not to make a fatal miscalculation, and he says Pyongyang shouldn't underestimate the U.S. President Trump warns North Korea that continued nuclear provocations would result in destruction of the regime. President Trump is also repeating his call for a complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. But the Pyongyang insists its military testing plans will not change, saying this before Mr. Trump's speech: "We do not care about what that mad dog may utter, because we've already heard enough." The next stop on the president's trip is China. Mr. Trump and Mrs. Trump landed in Beijing yesterday morning.
In sports today, we have a huge rivalry game in soccer against Columbus tonight. The game starts at 8 p.m. and it will be at Columbus, so make sure you go and support your varsity team. Friday, the Wolverine varsity football team takes on the Southridge Spartans in their first playoff game of the season. The Wolverines made the playoffs coming off a 6-3 record and will begin their playoff run at 1 o'clock at Dela Cruz Stadium. Yesterday, 4 seniors signed in their university in the dining hall after school. 3 baseball commits are Andrew Hernandez to UPenn, Jonathan Barters to Manhattan College, and Humberto Torres to FIU. Finally, for swimming, Aitor Fungariño signed to UT Austin. Congrats, guys. This Saturday at 8, the Hurricanes will face off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It was expected to be the biggest college football game of the week. We asked you guys who you thought would win on Twitter, and it was all about the U, with 85% of the voters putting UM as the favorites. In professional football, the Dolphins will square off against the Carolina Panthers Sunday, coming off a close loss to the Raiders in last week's game. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. The UCLA basketball team got into some trouble in China earlier this week ahead of their season opener in Shanghai. 3 freshmen on the team, LiAngelo Ball, Cody Riley, and Jalen Hill, were caught shoplifting sunglasses at a Louis Vuitton store near the team's hotel. A statement from one of China's foreign ministry spokespersons says that China will handle the case in accordance with the law, but as of now, it is confirmed that the 3 were released on bail. The 3 will miss the season opener, and it's still unclear if they'll have to miss any other games this season. And now, tragic news struck the baseball world Tuesday when it was reported that the 2-time C.Y. Young award-winning pitcher, Roy Halladay, had passed away in a plane crash. Witnesses say that Halladay was flying bizarrely, making extreme changes in altitude, and one boater even claimed to see him go from 100 feet to 5 feet multiple times. The details and cause of the crash have not yet been discovered. However, it is for certain that Halladay will go down as one of the standout stars of his time. And before we go on a lighter note, let's send it back to our fantasy football update. We're going to give you the plays to start for this week. Starting it off, we have Matt Forte, who had a great game last week against a tough Bills team. Forte and the Jets look to play a Bucs team that has struggled and has given up the most points to opposing quarterbacks this year. This means Forte's involvement in the passing and rushing game should make him a good option at the second running back position. Our wide receiver pick for the weekend is going to be Marvin Jones, who has been a touchdown machine for the Lions all season long. Jones plays against an average Browns secondary that has given up big yardage all season, ranking 15th in the league, which means Marvin's touchdown catching ability could come in handy here. And last but not least, at tight end, you might want to do yourself a favor and try and pick up Evan Engram because he's having himself a season. Ever since injury stunted the Giants' passing game, Eli Manning has found a way to get Engram the ball, and it's paying off for fantasy owners. This week, he goes up against an 0-8 49ers team, which has just been all-around awful. So if you're looking for a definite star this week, pick up Engram. Hopefully this week's update will help you out, and tune in next week where we'll give you your next fantasy update. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Raul. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook for latest news and pictures. I'm Danny Esteban.
And I'm Stefano Pinto. Thanks for watching, and stay golden, Wolverines.